Childhood memories. It's the things that you cherish, because those were simpler times in your life. Childhood was a time where new discoveries were all around you, and you'll watch just about anything that is either a cartoon, puppet, or clown, no matter how terrible the show is. He-Man. It was an age of innocence that could be taken away by the real world if we let it. Unfortunately, we do have to grow up. We mature, we have responsibilities, jobs, bills, even children of our own. But isn't it nice that there is a place from our childhood that we can return to? A place that we can share with our children. A place of innocence. A place that allows you to, even if it's for a short period of time, lets you be a kid again, hardly changing over time. A place called the 100-Acre Wood. This is getting personal, my top 10 favorite Winnie the Pooh moments. I will warn everyone, this top 10 will be a little different. Anytime I release a video under the Getting Personal banner, it means that the video will be focusing more on my personal experiences and memories of these characters and shows, so they are a little deeper look into my childhood. That is not to say there isn't a review within this video, there is. But this is more about my relationship with the characters themselves. With the release of Christopher Robin, I felt like it was a good time to talk about my favorite Winnie the Pooh moments. These moments will be spread over different media and experiences, not just the cartoons. As for my feelings on the Christopher Robin movie itself, I'm excited, but also kind of leery. The reason why I say that is because from the trailers I get this portal to another world vibe. We tend to know what happens with those movies, right? This one, however, looks a little different as the characters don't seem to be going to a modern time. So no modern technology, no product placement, no dabbing, hopefully. I get this cross between a Smurfs movie and a Hook feeling from these trailers. Even though I'm expecting to have a good time and perhaps shed a little tear from this movie. Getting back to the topic on hand, I grew up in the between time for Winnie the Pooh. It was a time where Pooh Bear was just another Disney entity, where the company was just starting to test the waters of what they could do with the characters before they really blew up. In my childhood, we had the many adventures, A Day for Eeyore, Welcome to Pooh Corner, and the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. But it was so much more than just movies to me, as you will soon find out. Some of my memories were from non-Disney sources, like my local Kittyland and Santa's Villages that had paintings of Winnie the Pooh characters. Now, not everything will be from my childhood. A lot of these favorites will be from my adult life. Also, stay tuned after the top 10 for a story on how I relate to the inspiration of Christopher Robin, A.A. Milne's son, Christopher Robin. Let's start the countdown.
Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, tubby little tubby all stuffed with fluff.
Winnie the Pooh 2011. As much as we love Winnie the Pooh, he does have a huge problem. That problem is, he never went away. Over the course of 35 years from 1983 to 2018, we've had 1 mini-movie, 2 to 5 straight-to-video films, 4 TV series, 4 TV specials, and 4 theatrical released movies. That is almost 1 new Winnie the Pooh thing every other year. Not to mention toys and video games, theme park attractions, and so much more. This is kind of tragic because there is an oversaturation of these characters. And because of this oversaturation, it might have closed down Disney's traditional feature-length animation department. On July 15th, 2011, Disney would release what is currently its final traditional animated film out of Walt Disney Studios in the United States, titled Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Pooh, in my opinion, is one of, if not the best Pooh Bear anything. Since maybe Pooh's Grand Adventure was released, the animation, the writing, the jokes, they work well so much in this movie. There was a nostalgic feeling, and it also felt current with today's top stories. I found myself laughing and remembering the good times from my childhood. Owl's misunderstandings, trying to get out of the pit, and the search for Eeyore's tail. This was such a good movie, only for it to get buried by Harry Potter in the Deathly Hallows Part 2. What was Disney thinking releasing it at the same time as a Harry Potter film? It's like Fox releasing a Chipmunks movie the same time as a Star Wars film would come out. But on top of that, I was also in the boat when the movie came out that it's, just another Winnie the Pooh movie. And they tend to be for little kids. Oh sure, it's been 6 years since we had Pooh's Heffalump movie, and a Halloween DVD, and a preschool TV series. So, how was this movie any different? Well, it's smart, it's charming, and it doesn't talk down to its audience. It's a really good movie that got buried because of bad timing and oversaturation of its characters. And since the movie was deemed a failure, and since Princess and the Frog didn't turn out too well either, future planned movies that were going to be animated traditionally were either canceled, or in the case of Frozen, moved to computer animated, which was a real shame. I love Winnie the Pooh. This movie deserved better than what it got.
Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, tubby little tubby all stuffed with fluff. He's
Heffalumps and Woozles. This is a memory from when I was a little older. I'm sure that I watched Winnie the Pooh on a blustery day when I was younger. I just don't remember watching this sequence. This is odd because one of the most memorable and terrifying things I remember from my childhood is Dumbo's pink elephants on parade. And the Heffalumps and Woozles sequence is almost just like that. So I'm sure that I would remember it. But anyway, the sequence is amazing. While Heffalumps and Woozles is not one of my favorite Winnie the Pooh songs, the creativity and visuals make up for it. It's a real trip and is indeed iconic. So iconic that Disney made it part of their Winnie the Pooh rides at the park. The best out of all of them is Pooh's Honey Hunt at Tokyo Disneyland. Getting back to the sequence, it's almost surreal at times. We know it's a Pooh nightmare that is brought on by what Tigger said. But you kind of feel for Pooh as the creatures start taking away his most favorite thing, honey. The sequence starts perfectly and ends perfectly with a clap of thunder. It's one of the reasons why Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day is my favorite out of all of the original Winnie the Pooh trilogy.
Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, tubby little tubby all stuffed with fluff. He's
Disneyland Records, Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2. One of my very earliest memories of Winnie the Pooh I had was when I was 5. It came from a read-along record of Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2 from Disneyland Records. My sister and I had a playroom in our house where we had toys, but my parents also had a record player in it as well. Keep in mind, I was 5, my sister was 3. I'm not sure if that was a smart move, but then again, it was a small house. Now Disneyland Records read-along books are notorious for 3 things. One is this sound. Ah, yes, that brings back memories, doesn't it? The sound that lets you know it's time to turn the page. Second, they have a song at the end of the recording that is related to the story. In this case, the wonderful thing about Tiggers. And finally, well, I'll let you hear what the last thing is.
I know.
said Pooh.
You bounced me before.
Who is this guy? That isn't Pooh. That's not Pooh at all. That is bootleg Pooh. What about Rabbit?
No, Tigger, don't bounce.
Not any better. And Tigger?
Because bouncing is what Tiggers do best.
Is that Goofy pretending to be Tigger? I guess Dippy Dog had more than one role. Now I can understand that it is hard to make an audio book from a movie that is decades old. Say like Snow White, where you can't necessarily get the original actors. But I was listening to this record between A Day for Eeyore and The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh coming out. They couldn't get Paul Winchell away from recording Smurfs to do lines for the record? Or Hal Smith to play Pooh? Sad fact remains that when it comes to voicing records and products back in the day, Disney played it cheap. But then again, at the time, videotapes were a rare thing, and Disney movies weren't shown that often on television where we could recognize the voices. In short, they got away with it. Nowadays, yeah, they can't. Not with the internet and everything.
There's something to be said for the original.
Oh, shut up, knockoff Woody voice. Whatever the case, my sister and I enjoyed listening to that record when we were young. Nowadays, I just enjoy mocking it.
That sand pit is following us. Maybe we are lost, Rabbit.
He sounds like Piglet, and Piglet didn't say anything in this record.
Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, tubby little tubby all stuffed with fluff. He's
Welcome to Pooh Corner. Remember when Disney Channel had a paywall? I do. Those were the days of Mousercise, and the only chance to watch the old Mickey Mouse cartoons, unless they were part of a Wonderful World of Disney compilation special. It was the days of DTV and Dumbo's Circus, and Disney Afternoon premieres before they head to the Disney Afternoon. It was when Disney premiered their films on TV a couple months after they came to VHS and the new Mickey Mouse Club. And they also happened to have Welcome to Pooh Corner. I remember this series as a kid, but I don't remember all that much about it. Without watching an episode recently, I remember Eeyore talking all the time about eating thistles, Piglet sounding like John Herbert from Family Guy, and Tigger living with Kanga and Roo. That's about it. Again, I was a kid at the time, and we don't remember things from our childhood unless we continue to watch them into our teens. I did not watch Welcome to Pooh Corner during my teens. But let's see how I feel about the show after I watch one episode. Well, it's adequate for a preschool show, I suppose. Some of the characters are out of character, especially Eeyore. I think the best part of the show are the outfits, especially Tigger's with the robotic eyebrows. It's interesting that the only original voice actor to return to the show from the original Winnie the Pooh trilogy is Hal Smith, who reprised his role as Owl and also played Owl in the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Smith also played Winnie the Pooh in Pooh Corner, as well as playing him in A Day for Eeyore. This is one of 3 preschool shows about the bear of very little brain from Disney. Since I've never watched Book of Pooh or My Friends Tigger and Pooh, I have no memories of them. But I'll give a quick thought about them after watching one episode each. Book of Pooh. Fantastic. There is a charm to this series. It's obviously puppets with puppeteers dressed in green in front of a green screen, but it's done so well. It's a real shame that this series lasted only 2 seasons, but I can't imagine it takes a lot of work to make something like this. And now, My Friends Tigger and Pooh. This is what I expect from a preschool show nowadays. A cookie-cutter Dora the Explorer Blue's Clues copy. The standard character looking at the screen. Hey, can you see which show is copying Blue's Clues and Dora the Explorer? I don't really like shows like this because they talk down to kids. I guess I can understand why little kids like this, but it's not really a good fit for Winnie the Pooh. I'll be honest, I don't think live-action puppetry or television computer animation really works for Pooh and the gang, as they can do so much more with 2D animation. Also, forced preschool intentions don't work for Winnie the Pooh either. Look, when the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh came out, the crew didn't have limitations to pander to preschoolers. They had good stories, they had constant sight gags, running jokes, and some slapsticks, all while having a fun lesson. All the traditional animated Winnie the Pooh stuff wasn't limited to one age group. That is why they are beloved by children, their parents, and their grandparents, unlike the preschool stuff. It's also the reason why the original Muppet Babies will be remembered more fondly, because the new series limits the characters, limiting them to only act like preschoolers instead of, well, Muppets. Also, the live action and puppetry stuff, the facial expressions are limited, which means they can't really express themselves that well outside of, raised eyebrows and movements from the arms and legs. Television computer animation is extremely limited, as they can't give off the same expressions like the original 2D animation can. Now, computer animated movies nowadays are no longer restricted to these limitations, but there are still limitations. And I'm not talking about the Christopher Robin movie, in this case because these are designed to look like toys. I'm talking more like the animation style of Wreck-It Ralph and Frozen. We'll see what Wreck-It Ralph does with Pooh Bear. Like I said, they can do more with traditional animation, which in the end makes the characters more endearing. But I can also understand that the preschool characters are drawn for babies and toddlers. I also understand that most, if not all, preschool shows are designed to sell toys of that show. Seriously, there is a whole row of Sophia the First toys at Walmart. Yet there is Gravity Falls, one of Disney's biggest shows lately, that has no toys. You see where the priority is. Get them while they're young. I appreciate that when Disney does anything with traditional animation with Winnie the Pooh, it's geared towards all audiences, not just toddlers.
Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, tubby little tubby all stuffed with fluff. He's
Pooh Sticks. For some reason, before the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh and A Day for Eeyore mini-movie came out. It's the Pooh short that I remember the most. I think it's because of two things. First, my elementary school played it, and second, it was available at my local video store and we rented it all the time. There's also the fact that whenever the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh would air on syndicated television, they would replace the And Tigger 2 segment with A Day for Eeyore. I'm not sure why. To be honest, the movie is not the greatest, but there is a takeaway. The game of Pooh Sticks. A game that was invented by Winnie the Pooh, in which he would race two fir cones, or two sticks, in a creek or river to see which one would cross under a bridge first. Now, my grandparents lived in a woods with a little creek with a road going over it. My sisters and I loved collecting objects and raced them in the creek. We raced all kinds of things that could float. Sticks, bread, apples, very small rocks, cider, witches, gravy, cherries, lead, ducks. You get the picture. It's because of Winnie the Pooh and A Day for Eeyore that my sisters and I played the game. Good times.
Pooh and his friends will be back in a moment.
And now we return to the new adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, tubby little tubby all stuffed with fluff. He's
Shirley Temple's storybook. Now, it's hard not to think about that silly old bear without the Disney version coming to mind. There is also the book series that the Disney version is based off of. But what many don't know is there are a few non-Disney media versions of Pooh Bear as well. There's audio skits and theatrical productions. One of these productions, a marionette-style show, ended up on television on an anthology series that was hosted by Shirley Temple. Shirley Temple's storybook was an anthology series that lasted from 1958 to 1961 on NBC. A lot of the episodes were based off of fairy tales, and some were based off of other children's books such as Madeline, Pippi Longstocking, The Land of Oz, and more. It's a very charming series that is worth a look. Most of the episodes are live action, but Winnie the Pooh was puppets and marionettes. The play has a little bit here and there from both Winnie the Pooh and the House at Pooh Corner books. To put it in Disney terms, a little bit of Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Tree, A Day for Eeyore, The Blustery Day, Piglet's Big Movie, and a little from the 2011 Winnie the Pooh movie. The best part is, the stories mesh so well together. Yeah, the voice cast is hard to get adjusted to since we are so used to Disney's version. Again, this is before Disney's version. Also, Eeyore has a bit of an attitude in this. He's a wee bit snippy. But Pooh, Piglet, and the others in this production of Winnie the Pooh are as charming as ever. Also, the puppets look almost exactly like Christopher Robin's original toys. Again, it's quite a delightful find, if you can find it.
Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, tubby little tubby all stuffed with fluff. He's
Parodies. They say that imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery. Not exactly sure if the same can be said for parodies. Some parodies can be mean, or make a cruel statement on the original. Or some parodies can just be crap trying to cash in on the popularity of the original. Whatever the case, it seems not even Winnie the Pooh is able to avoid being parodied. Most of these parodies tend to be, well, they aren't funny. The one with Eeyore breaking his leg is clever, but isn't funny. However, there is one that I really enjoy. It has smart writing, great animation, and is really funny. Plus, it's from my childhood. Okay, like I was 18 at the time, but it still counts as my childhood. And what show is this parody from? Steven Spielberg presents Pinky and the Brain. Because of course it is. The megalomaniacal adventures of Brainy the Pooh features Brain, who is called Brainy the... You get the picture. Pinky is called Pinklet in this episode, an obvious parody of Piglet. The Brain plans on replacing all the artificial sweetener with honey to make people fat and easily controlled. But as always, getting honey is harder than what it seems. We get to meet all the other parody characters from the Acme Woods, again because of course it's called that. And it's at this point where I start to understand the network's concern about the show. Tigger is now named Jagger, an obvious combination of Tigger and Mick Jagger, well, obvious to an adult. Christopher Robin is now just Christopher, who turns out to be Christopher Walken, and Eeyore is now Al Gore, who is obviously Al Gore, who is so full of hot air that he floats Brain up to the honey, where the queen bee, Bea Arthur, is waiting. Now, do you see the problem that Pinky and the Brain have as a children's cartoon? What child is going to know any of those references? They'll get the Winnie the Pooh references, sure, and they'll love the violence. But this is a little too over the kids' heads. Adults will love it, especially since most of the references actually hold up, especially Al Gore, with maybe the exception of Bea Arthur. But seeing that the Golden Girls is still a big thing nowadays, for whatever reason, but being that these references are still relevant now, it's amazing because a lot of things from the 90s don't hold up topic-wise. I love this parody. It's clever, it's smart, and while it's over the kids' heads at times, they will enjoy it even more when they grow older. Unless Christopher Walken, Al Gore, and Mick Jagger are no longer relevant. Then this parody will be horribly out of date.
Brainy the Pooh.
Stop.
Brainy the Pooh.
Must you sing?
Surly, often churly, he loves to grouse.
The word is churlish.
Brainy the Pooh.
What is this poo business?
Brainy the Pooh. Power crazed and bitter old mouse.
Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, tubby little tubby all stuffed with fluff. He's
Babysitter Blues. It may not have seemed important at the time, but I remember the very first episode I saw of the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. There are very few series where I remember the very first episode I saw of them without being the first episode. Animaniacs, it was de-Xanatized. Darkwing Duck, it was Dirty Money. Rescue Rangers, it was Carpet Snaggers. With the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, it was Babysitter Blues. On March 13th, 1988 on the Disney Channel. Yeah, you tend to forget that Disney did a sneak peek of one of their new animated series on the Disney Channel back in the day. It was from the spring of 1988 to the spring of 1994, ending with Aladdin. Back in '88, I was 9 at the time, and I didn't think much of it when I watched Babysitter Blues for the first time. I thought it was just another Winnie the Pooh short. Turns out, yeah, I was wrong, because ABC started the series that fall. By the way, that was the only episode I watched first on the Disney Channel, since it was on the weekend my dad had me and my sister, and he was the one that had the Disney Channel. I was excited for the series to air on ABC, and best yet, the episodes were an hour long. Now by that time, I completely forgotten about Babysitter Blues until the episode aired again on ABC. Then the lights turned on. Aside from that, I really liked that particular episode. The series as a whole was very creative, but this episode used a lot of imagination, had a great character arc for Christopher Robin that was split into 2 parts. The first part of the episode is where we are at his house and Christopher Robin is being babysat for with Pooh, Piglet, and Tigger along for the ride. But Pooh and friends tend to be a little messy and cause problems for the babysitter. The second part puts the roles in reverse where Christopher Robin is the babysitter, watching over Roo. The episode is a lot of fun and it brings back fond memories for me. My favorite parts are the jailbreak, pirate pillow fight, and the game of hide and seek. I just wish they would have a complete DVD set of the series instead of those stupid theme compilation DVDs.
Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, tubby little tubby all stuffed with fluff. He's
Tigger. As I'm sure it's the same for many, Tigger is my favorite character from Winnie the Pooh. Part of it has to do with the fact that he is so energetic. He brings a certain kind of energy to anything Pooh related. And if anything, Tigger connects more to kids than even Pooh does. I think part of the reason why that is because Tigger is like a giant kid himself, to the point where he will lie to try to get away with something. Much like you don't prank Fluttershy, you don't bounce an unsuspecting Eeyore. Or Push. Unless your intention wasn't to catch him off guard and then you have a standard Tigger greeting. Tigger has interesting relationships with other characters. There is Pooh. He basically acknowledges that Tigger is around. The same can be said with Owl, Kanga, and Gopher. Piglet is a little intimidated by him. Rabbit is frustrated by him. And the same can be said for Christopher Robin at times. Well, at least in the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Eeyore has an interesting relationship with Tigger, as he never gets angry at him. In fact, he becomes Tigger not once but twice. The second time kinda fazed him a little bit. Eeyore even helped Tigger when he was at his lowest, when he could not identify who or what he was. I would say their relationship is complicated. But there is also the relationship Tigger has with Roo. Both characters gel so well together because Tigger's like a kid and Roo is one. It's like Roo is Tigger's adopted younger brother, which might be understandable since Tigger is one of a kind. Roo has gone out of his way to make Tigger happy by having others pretend to be other Tiggers. It's a wonderful relationship. Now I can't talk about Tigger without talking about his voice actors, Paul Winchell and Jim Cummings. Winchell brings an amazing kind of energy the character needed. I don't know how to put it in another way, but he's bouncy when he voices him. It's actually a perfect voice for a character like this. And you could tell Winchell is having a lot of fun. Unfortunately, Paul Winchell decided to retire between the second and third season of the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. I'm surprised that the studio allowed him to do this. I kinda thought he died at the time. Again, no internet. But he did return for a few holiday specials in a movie. With his replacement, Jim Cummings, the character seemed to lose some of his energy. Unfortunately for me, it never felt like the same kind of Tigger, which is not necessarily a bad thing because his heart is still there. It's just you can't replace Paul Winchell. His voice is that unique, and it's just so damn hard to find a match for it. Even with Jim Cummings at the helm, Tigger is still enjoyable, but it feels like there are two different Tiggers now. The Tigger from Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day is no longer the only one.
Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, tubby little tubby all stuffed with fluff.
The songs of Winnie the Pooh. One of my favorite things about Winnie the Pooh across all medias is the music. It doesn't matter what show it's from. It could be from a theatrical release, straight to DVD, an educational show. The music of Winnie the Pooh is always a highlight. And we're gonna go through 10 of my favorite songs, without commentary because this video's already long enough as it is. So in no particular order, here is my top 10 favorite Winnie the Pooh songs. Excluding the educational ones because, you know, haven't watched all of those.
So you'll be alright, 'cause it's make-believe. It's just the light that shines real bright and bounces off a screen.
The fearless bear who wears the mask has never run from any task, and with his trusted, faithful steed, he battles on to victory. Hey, watch who you're shoving, Johnny.
I say, how rude.
I want to call your name forever, and you will always answer forever. And both of us will be forever, you and me, forever and ever.
I know I've changed on the outside, but on the inside I feel the same.
Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, tubby little tubby all stuffed with fluff. He's Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, willy-nilly silly old bear.
A Pooh Bear takes care of his tummy. He fills it with things that are sweet. A Pooh Bear takes care of his tummy by never forgetting to eat. Here we go floating anywhere we please, holding you tight as I can. You're safe as a honeypot, you always will be, and I'll be right there when we land.
Adventure is a hoot and a half. You'll face unearthly dangers and look at them and laugh. The claws, the teeth, the chase, the thrill. You'll never want to come home. Maybe you'll never will.
And when we're alone and there's nobody home, it's nice to be able to count on a friend like Pooh Bear, Winnie the Pooh Bear. Wherever you go, oh, won't you take me, please?
When I up, down, touch the ground, it puts me in the mood. Up, down, touch the ground, in the mood for food.
What does a Baxon do? I'm thinking, and now I will tell you. They sneak into your library and scribble in all your books.
The Baxon, we go.
Loop-de-dooper, loop-de-looper, alley-ooper bounce. The whoop-de-dooper, loop-de-looper, alley-ooper bounce. It's got the zip that makes you flip, and that's what really counts. In the whoop-de-dooper, loop-de-looper, alley-ooper bounce.
I'm just a little black rain cloud hovering under the honey tree. I'm only a little black rain cloud. Pay no attention to little me.
Round, round my family tree. I look like them and they look like me. Round, round my family tree. We're a happy family. Round my family tree. We're a happy family.
The wonderful thing about Tiggers is Tiggers are wonderful things. Their tops are made out of rubber, their bottoms are made out of strings. They're bouncy, trouncy, flouncy, pouncy, fun, 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 fun. But the most wonderful thing about Tiggers is I'm the only one. I'm the only one.
I'll be the next and you be the Tigger. Gonna see whose bounce is bigger. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna give me your best attack, but don't you think that it won't fight back? It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
And the rain, rain, rain came down, down, down. So Piglet started hailing. He was unaware atop his chair while bailing he was sailing.
And the rain, rain, rain came down, 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 and the flood rose up above her.
Everything is honey, everywhere I see. Everything is honey, and that's quite alright with me. I am a bear of little brain, I can't explain why everything will be changing to the favorite snack of Winnie the Pooh. Can you?
I wanna scare myself and everyone else. The silly and chilly old willies will rise. Cover your eyes, little buddy, beware. I'm twitching and itching to scare myself.
So yeah, I know that was like around 20 songs. But to be honest, the Winnie the Pooh series has so many great songs, ranging from happy and upbeat to sad and emotional. And to boil it down to just 10 songs, well, that was hard to do. I mean, these songs aren't even in order. And of course, there were songs that I really wish that made the list, but couldn't because there were so many good songs. So that's my top 10 personal favorite moments from Winnie the Pooh. What are your favorite Winnie the Pooh moments? Put them down in the comments below. Now with that said, I'm going to give you one more personal connection I have to anything Winnie the Pooh related. Back in 2013, I contracted an illness called myasthenia gravis. I'm sure many of you may have noticed with my earlier videos that I have sort of a slur when I speak, especially for long periods of time, and I'm sure you noticed that it kept getting better and better with each new video that I post because I'm improving. It's because myasthenia gravis is a muscle degeneration disease. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. Again, I'm getting better. At one point when the disease was at its worst, in 2014, it got to the point where the muscles in my throat were not allowing me to breathe. It was at this point I had to go to the ICU. The reason why I bring this up is because the real-life son of A.A. Milne and the inspiration for the character of Christopher Robin, Milne's son Christopher Robin, also contracted this disease, and it seemed that he may have passed away from it in 1996. It seemed that he passed away in his sleep from not breathing because of the disease. Now I don't know if the movie Goodbye Christopher Robin actually mentions anything about the illness, because I've never seen the movie. But that's pretty much my only connection to the person. And from what I've read, I'm glad it is. I also need to point this out that the character of Christopher Robin, especially in the upcoming Christopher Robin movie, and the actual person Christopher Robin are two completely different things. And it's for the best that we remember it that way. As far as Winnie the Pooh is concerned, I love Winnie the Pooh. It's one of my favorite series. It's a good old slice of life series where there are very few villains, if any, where we are only limited by our imaginations. I know people don't like that it's as commercialized as it is, and I can understand that. But even then, there is nothing preventing me from going back to my childhood and enjoying a few wonderful moments with a silly old bear named Winnie the Pooh.